From serving as a warning about human greed to implying that there are no real heroes, here's the true meaning behind Dune. The story depicts what could happen to human civilization if the greed of the few is left unchecked. The film may look like an epic story of good versus evil, but when Frank Herbert wrote the books, he predicted the political and cultural conflicts that were yet to come. Like any story, there are layers to Dune, which makes it deeper than it might seem to the average viewer. But to the film's credit, Denis Villeneuve utilized the true theme of the story and turned it into an instant classic, touching on issues of race, culture, and colonialism. He captured the madness behind the story and the true intensity of its futuristic world. Think of it as a cautionary tale for future generations, showing them what could happen if megacorporations are allowed to push their agendas on the people, just so they can gather wealth and resources for themselves. You can make comparisons of the story and the colonial era, when Western Europe tried to colonize the known and unknown world, or to the more recent US invasion of Middle Eastern Asia. The fact is that even though the plot of Dune and these real-world events may be completely separate, the greed remains more or less the same. This isn't a coincidence either, because Herbert was deeply inspired by Islamic history and Bedouin culture, and Paul Atreides is just a futuristic version of Lawrence of Arabia. Staying true to that, Villeneuve shot Dune in Jordan's Wadi Rum, the same place where David Lean filmed the Oscar-winning adaptation of Lawrence of Arabia. Even the local language of the desert planet, Arrakis, is influenced by Arabic, along with the vast, rocky, sandy setting of the story. I mean, the similarities are uncanny if you think about it. On top of that, Arrakis is supposed to be rich in natural resources, and Atreides is extracting a substance known as spice, which acts as fuel for intergalactic travel. This is an obvious reference to the oil wars that have plagued the Middle East for so many years, and how foreign forces have tried to exploit those resources. Heck, even the native freemen wear robe-like dresses, and are a religious group who know how to survive in the deserts. The similarities don't end here, because Caladan, a misty green planet full of water on the other side of the universe, is home to the House of Atreides. See, the scenes for the planet were filmed in Norway, which just goes to show the stark reality of colonial rule and the contrast between the two worlds. After the Emperor hands the possession of Arrakis to House Atreides, they assemble their armies to kickstart their rule on the distant, resource-rich planet. Obviously, these political and racial cues are intentional in the story, because that's what has happened in the past. Like when England's monarchy greenlit the colonization of India and other parts of the world, handing over control to organizations such as the British East India Company, a white, dominant Western military power invading a primitive foreign culture just so they could extract their minerals and use them for themselves. I mean, that's pretty much the plot of the film, isn't it? The British did it for their spice trade in India, the US did it for oil in the Middle East, and the same would be the case for Arrakis and spice. Herbert also accurately depicted how the foreign invading force massively misjudged the natives, because in reality, the people of Arrakis were an ancient, sophisticated society who knew how to defend themselves. They understood the terrain and the landscape far better than the colonizing forces, always using them to their advantage. They also had natural forces in the form of sandworms on their side, which no military equipment could defeat. Villeneuve so far has done a tremendous job of exploring these themes, but it didn't come to him overnight. See, during an interview, the Dune director said that he first read the book when he was 15, becoming completely obsessed with the story because Denis was looking for something deeper than a typical adventure. And that's exactly what he found within the pages of Dune. It was powerful, and the layers that Herbert had hidden throughout the plot fascinated him. Villeneuve admitted that he tried to bring that same depth to the screen as well, but it wasn't easy because there are just so many elements in it. I mean, to be fair, the story has whole new worlds, cultures and empires to explore, so it's an insane task to capture the true scale of it. In the end, he chose to focus on fate and destiny, saying that humans need to understand them in order to change the world. Denis describes his film as a call for action to bring change to the world, and for that, he looks to the younger generation. So, when the youth buys a ticket to see the new blockbuster sci-fi fantasy, they also get to see the deeper meaning behind it, which is the inspirational human journey depicted by Paul Paul's transformation from a young aristocrat into a warrior prophet. Even Oscar Isaac, who plays the role of Duke Leto Atreides, agrees with his director's take on the story, saying that it's about a clash of cultures. The movie was actually more about human tribes than alien species, which gets the point across that this isn't some faraway fantastical land and could very likely happen to any of us in the future. To stay faithful to the original story and convey its message completely, Villeneuve decided that it'd be best to break it into 2 separate films, and that's why he chose to film some of the Arrakis scenes in a real desert. The ecosystem of the planet was also an important theme in Herbert's novels, and to adapt it correctly, it was important that it was as close as possible to the real thing for the director. But the true core issue of the film that Villeneuve explored is the danger of misguided wars. Don't get me wrong here, guys. Dune isn't based on a modern-day headline about the war on terror. In fact, Herbert wrote the story back in the 60s, before any of today's conflicts even came to light, and Denny just made a faithful adaptation of those novels. But at the same time, he isn't afraid to depict these controversial issues in his other works. Take his film on the Lebanese civil war, Incendies, for example, or Sicario, where he explored the uncomfortable realities of the US-Mexico border. Villeneuve's movies aren't supposed to give out answers or closure to the audience. Instead, they explore the very real problems that the world and humanity face today. So it's no surprise that the sand wars of Dune resemble America's venture into the Middle East, as they travel into an inhospitable environment and face misunderstood cultures. There are no good guys or bad guys in the story, because it's just a warning against human greed for their own gain. The movie shows the great houses that control politics, wealth, and power, but each one of them has their own agendas, and their rivalry is what spells doom for the rest of the universe. House Atreides may seem like the good guys, and House Harkonnen could look like villains to you, but in reality, they're both locked in a political power struggle, and they don't really care what's going to happen to anyone caught in the middle of it. I mean, even Paul isn't the hero that he's believed to be. Sure, the first film set him up as the protagonist, because he completed the whole journey and was able to win the Freeman's favour. But that's only half of Herbert's original story. Paul became a true leader at the end of the film, but he was also forced to kill someone. This paints a picture for the difficult decisions leaders have to make, and it hints at the fact that the tale isn't all heroic, because his decisions in the future could result in the deaths of billions. Paul will start a revenge quest against the Harkonnens and the Emperor, and he'll use the relationship he managed to build with the Freemans to do it. Honestly, Dune's ending isn't meant to be a happy one, because Paul's actions have set in motion a series of destructive events that he can't stop anymore. This circles back to Herbert's hidden message, showing how people with power and influence can never be heroic, because they'll be forced to make brutal decisions that will always lead to unnecessary bloodshed. People only see themselves as heroes in their own stories, while they really could be the bad guy in someone else's. So, in the end, it's all just a matter of perspective. Well, there you have it, folks. From implying that there are no real heroes to serve as a warning about human greed, that was the true meaning behind Dune.